to my channel, the best place to be wherever you are on your wealth journey right now. Today I want to discuss a question that I get asked both by first-time buyers and by potential property investors, which is basically, which should I do first? Should I buy my own home first, or should I buy a buy-to-let first? What's the answer? Well, before I get into all of that, I will say, guys, that if you're interested in more videos on personal development, mindset and wealth creation as well, then do subscribe to my channel just underneath this video. And if you hit the bell next to there as well, you'll get notified every time a new video comes up. Okay, so what's the answer then? Should I buy my own home or should I buy a buy-to-let property? Well, a lot will depend on your personal circumstances, your attitude to risk, and also how serious you are about wanting to start a property portfolio. Now, I will pop a disclaimer in here, guys, okay, just to say that this is not financial advice, that everything that I'm about to say, it's just education, okay, but what I'm going to do is talk about what I did personally, and then I'm going to bring it bang up to date and we can talk about 2020 and exactly what to do today, and would I do it any differently? So let's discuss that. So when I started my property journey, I started in 2003, that was when I bought my first house, and I bought an investment property first. So my first one was an investment, it was a buy-to-let that I bought. This is it, it's a one-bedroom terraced house. Now, it might not look very exciting, but to me at the time, it was absolutely amazing. It was really, really sexy, it was fantastic, I absolutely loved it. There is nothing like picking up a new set of keys to a new house. So I was really, really excited about it. Now, I bought this property for £95,000 and immediately, straight off the bat, I was able to get £650 per month in rent for it. Now, I didn't even do any work to the property. I didn't do it up. I don't think I even painted it, if I remember rightly. I think I just literally just got the keys and pretty much gave them to the first tenant. So that was my sort of first foray into property investing. And I was absolutely delighted with it. You know, the £650 a month rent had to go on the mortgage, and I also had another loan that I'd taken out as well. So by the time I'd factored those in, I was only left with a net profit of about £90 per month. But for me at the time, I felt that was absolutely fantastic because I was only earning 750 quid working as an estate agent at the time. And this £90, although it wasn't enough to make me rich, what it certainly did do was it changed my mindset. Because here I suddenly had money coming in that I wasn't having to work for. And for me, that was massive. Now, outgoings wise as well, I will say I didn't really have very much because I was living with my parents at the time as well. The property market at the time was rising rapidly. House prices were going up on a daily basis back then. It was absolutely crazy. And what I found was that having bought that property in the May of 2003, by the April of the following year, 2004, it had gained £30,000 in capital uplift. So the property was now worth £125,000 for that tiny little one bed, and I'd not even refurbished it, remember. So what I did was I refinanced the property, I pulled some money out, and I went and did exactly the same thing. I bought another property with that money, and then a year later exactly the same thing happened, 2005, and I was able to buy another property with that money as well. So once that had happened, a bit later on in 2005, I decided that it was time to buy something to live in, my own home. So I'd already started my portfolio, I'd got 3 properties under my belt, and then I decided to buy my main residence. And by this point, I was getting a fairly good income from the 3 properties. I was getting a net profit of £500 per month across the 3, which I thought was pretty good at the time. A house that I bought in 2005 to live in was a bigger house than the other ones. This was a 2-bedroom house. All the other ones I'd bought so far were 1-bedroom houses. But I bought it on the basis that it would make a fantastic rental property one day. So my plan was to move it in, and when I didn't want to live there anymore, I would keep it and rent it out, which is exactly what I did. I stayed there for 3 years, so until 2008, I moved out and I rented that property out for 9 years. Because what happened was that as I was living there, I thought to myself, do you know what? This is really silly. I could actually just be making more money on this property because it was bigger than the others. Remember, it was 2 bedrooms, so it would command more rental income. And I thought, this seems really silly, me living here, when actually I could probably rent something cheaper elsewhere and still get the income coming in from this one. So that's what I did. I moved out and back into rented accommodation. And we rented for 9 years. We weren't expecting it quite to be that long, but it just kind of whizzed by really. And so 9 years later, to 2017, we finally bought another house to live in. Now, over that period of time, I'd also carried on investing. Now, you guys will know already from this video here that I had £125,000 of bad debt from loans, credit cards, you name it. And I wanted to pay that off. So I did that over the 9 years while we were renting. And while we were renting, I still had rental coming in from all the other properties that I'd bought, plus I was still buying some more. So as I was paying that debt off, I was still able to invest and buy more property. And that, since then, has stood me in really good stead, because in 2017, I was able to go from renting a 2-bedroom flat to buying a 5-bedroom detached house, which is amazing. And I'm really enjoying living here now, obviously. So what has changed over that time then, and would I do things differently? Well, I think the biggest change for me has got to be my mindset, because when I first started my wealth journey, I'd come out of university and for some reason I kind of told myself that I was only worth the £750 per month that I was being paid by the estate agent. I didn't really feel I was worth anything more than that. I thought to myself, why would anyone want to pay me money? And it seemed baffling to me. I've had to go through a lot of mindset shifts, and this is why I call it a wealth journey, because you start somewhere not quite knowing where you're going to end up, but you go there, and it is a journey, it's a progression. I always say as well about property investing, it's not get rich quick, okay? There's no such thing as get rich quick. It's get rich slowly and steadily and with a strategy and a plan in place. So you need to make sure that you know what you're doing. But that aside, I knew that my mindset has changed. Back then I was only worth £750 per month, which is about £9 a year. Now I can make £9 in a month, and it just happens. And that is awesome. And that is all to do with belief and confidence and that whole journey, which is why I talk about the wealth journey. So in essence, if I was starting again today, I would do it all exactly the same way. Now let's talk about 2020 then, because certainly things have changed a lot since I started property investing, certainly in terms of being a landlord, and one thing in particular is the changes to stamp duty. Now I wanted to mention the stamp duty because people who are not sure about whether they want to buy their own home first or their property portfolio first, this might have a bearing on that. So I want to discuss the stamp duty changes. Now, stamp duty, or stamp duty land tax, to give it its full name, SDLT, that is a tax that we pay the government every time we complete on a property purchase. Now, when I started back in 2003, stamp duty was payable on any property worth over £60,000. And back when I started investing, you paid exactly the same stamp duty whether you were moving into a house that you bought for yourself, or whether you had an investment property, whether it was your first house or your 25th or your 100th house. Fast forward to today, and not only have the stamp duty rates gone up, but we also have different rates depending on whether we're buying a home to live in or whether we're buying a buy-to-let. And there's a different rule for first-time buyers as well. So it's quite complicated, and it's important, I think, to discuss and understand these differences before you actually go and buy anything. So the legislation today, 2020, is that if you're a first-time buyer, they will waive your stamp duty on anything up to the value of £300,000. So happy days, as a first-time buyer, you guys can go and buy anything up to £300,000, regardless of whether it's a buy-to-let or a house to live in. So you can do either of those, and there is no stamp duty on anything up to £300,000. However, if you then buy a second property, having kept the first one, so let's just say the first one you decided to live in and the second one was going to be your buy-to-let. Now let's say that was also valued at £300,000. Because it's your second or subsequent purchase, you have to pay an extra 3% on top of all the normal stamp duty that anybody would normally pay. And just to be clear on this, I will leave a list of stamp duty rates in the description of this video. So look out for those underneath if you want to know what they all are. So in my example here, if you'd bought a second property worth £300,000, you would have £14,000 in stamp duty to pay on that property. And that's because stamp duty is tiered, so a little bit like income tax is tiered. So for example, if you're a landlord, you would pay 3% on any property with a value up to £125,000. You would then pay 5% stamp duty on anything valued between £125,000 and a penny, right up to £250,000. And you would then pay 8% stamp duty on anything valued between £250,000 and a penny, right up to £925,000. So do you see what I mean by this? So it's all tiered. So if I take the 300,000 as an example, the way we would calculate the stamp duty if we were an investor is we would pay 3% of 125,000, which is 3,750. We would then pay 5% of the next 125,000 up to the value of 250,000. So that would be £6,250. And we would then pay 8% stamp duty on the remaining £50,000 of that £300,000 purchase. So that would come to £4,000. So that means your total stamp duty liability is 3,750 plus 6,250 plus £4,000, which comes to 14,000. So in another example, let's say you bought your main home as a first-time buyer for 300,000. Again, no stamp duty to pay there. Let's say you then bought a buy-to-let worth, let's say, £100,000. You'd have to pay 3% of £100,000 on that particular property in stamp duty. So £3,000 in stamp duty on that buy-to-let. So in this example, you've got two properties, your house for 300,000 that you live in, plus your buy-to-let for 100,000, and the only stamp duty you've paid so far has been the £3,000. Let's say we did it the other way around and we bought the £100,000 baby buy-to-let first of all, then there would be no stamp duty to pay on the baby buy-to-let at all. But when you bought your second property, the £300,000 house to live in, then you would have your £14,000 stamp duty to pay. Now, this extra stamp duty thing might put some people off buying their buy-to-let and getting their portfolio started before they buy their main home. But hand on heart today, honestly, if it were me, I would do it exactly the same way that I did it before. Because we also need to consider these things. Number one, my main residence is a liability, okay? It is not an asset. It is not going to put money into my pocket. It's going to take money out of my pocket because I've got bills to pay, I've got my mortgage to pay, I've got council tax, I've got, if the roof leaks, whatever happens, I've got to pay that. Conversely, my buy-to-let portfolio is giving me a rental income every single month. I can rely on that money, I can put food on the table with that money, and I know that it will sustain me. Otherwise, if I just have my main residence, I have to rely on my earned income for that, which may or may not be sustainable. The second thing is that providing I've built it properly, my property portfolio should be able to pay potentially for the deposit on the property that I want to live in myself, and also potentially for the stamp duty as well. Not only that, but my properties can also go up in value as well. So if I really wanted to, I could draw some money down out of my buy-to-lets and potentially pay off a bit more of my main residence if I wanted to. I have a lot more flexibility when I have my portfolio in place as well. The third thing to consider is a mindset thing. If you buy your main home, first of all, it might be that you end up getting quite comfortable in there. You might think to yourself, actually, I'm happy, I've made it, I think I'm doing okay. And you might not actually get your portfolio started. And with hindsight, for me, that would have been a really, really, really sad thing. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about it now, and it would have impacted all areas of my life. In fact, if we just look at the coronavirus pandemic that we're having at the moment, that, for me, property is the one thing, the one income stream that has actually kept me going through the whole crisis. And I will say, guys, that there's no right or wrong to this. It's purely up to you guys and your mindset, how you actually want to run things, how cautious you are. As I said, it's an attitude to risk thing as well. Whether you want to prioritise putting a roof over your head or getting your portfolio started and getting some income coming in. It will depend on all of those factors. A lot of it might also depend on whereabouts you are in your wealth journey right now as well. However, it might be that you're watching this and you've got a council house or a local authority house that you're living in, and you have the right to buy that property. If that's the case, then I would almost certainly take the discount, okay, because that is really, really good. And if you get your portfolio started, it may or may not impact your ability to actually get your right to buy. So in that case, I would definitely go for the right to buy first of all, and then build my portfolio off the back of that. And I have seen quite a few people do that. So you could do that if you wanted to. So if it were me starting again, yes, absolutely, I would definitely build my property portfolio first. But I will caveat this. Property investing is very risky if you don't know what you're doing. You should take property investing very seriously. It used to be a hobby, guys, but not anymore. Okay, you need to get yourself professional. The government are regularly reviewing landlord legislation and you need to know exactly what you're doing, otherwise you're going to get your fingers burned. So you need to be as professional as you possibly can be. So if that means spending a bit of money, going on some courses, learning how to do it properly, getting yourself a mentor, it might be getting a network of people around you, then I would say definitely do that, okay, because it will be money well spent. You will get your fingers burned further down the line if you don't know what you're doing. That's exactly what I did. I learned what I was doing before I actually went out and did it. Start on the right foot and you'll end up with a fantastic income generating portfolio that will see you through recessions, pandemics and whatever the heck else life throws at you. That's what I did right from the get-go and it was money well spent, I can tell you. Listen, if you haven't bought anything yet, pop me a comment below. What are you going to do? What are your plans? And if you are investing already, let us know which one you did first. You know, we'd love to know. While you're there, give me a big thumbs up if you did enjoy this video. Do watch these 2 videos next because they will help you on your wealth journey, and subscribe to my channel just here as well. And in the meantime, guys, do stay safe and I will see you in the next one.